My name is Pieter Willem Lemmes. I work for Klimact, and since joining Klimact, I've been working mainly on a project where we looked at how we could reduce greenhouse gas emissions from the Flemish industry. I'm excited about the study because for the first time ever, we've really did an in-depth study with a quantified modeling approach to see how we could decarbonize our Flemish energy-intensive industry. Thanks to the model developed by Klimact, for the first time we've been able to really see what is the impact of the different technologies combined and also what is their interaction. And that allowed us to do a lot of things such as identify potential synergies between industries. So to look to what extent can one industry use an output of its product as an input for another industrial sector so that they can cooperate together. And that's the first thanks to our modeling. The Flemish industry is a very important contributor not only to the Flemish economy, but also to the Flemish greenhouse gas emissions. So today they emit about 28 million tons of CO2 equivalent each year, and that's about 35% of the total Flemish emissions, and making it the most important sector in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. In our scenarios, we've looked at how far we could reduce emissions while maintaining a large part of the current value chain. And there we saw that we could reduce emissions between 85 and 90% by 2050 compared to 2005. So it's not completely to zero, but if we look at the European Commission scenarios, we also see that net zero means that some sectors, including industry, will still emit a little bit by 2050, but other sectors such as, for example, forestry and land use, they will absorb a net sink of emissions. So over all the sectors you have net zero. In terms of costs, we do expect that some new technologies might be more expensive, but we also see that the carbon price, the price for your emissions, is expected to increase into the future. And if we look at that expected increase in carbon price, doing nothing will become very costly and our industry won't be able to survive. So actually there's only one choice, and that's start to reduce your emissions. And if we do that, then we can still have an industry in Flanders in 2050. If we really want to go for deep emission reductions, then we need to develop new technologies. So what we need to do the coming 10 years is, first of all, support the development of these technologies. Second thing we need to do is we need to prepare our infrastructure and our logistical chains to make sure that when the technology is ready, the infrastructure is also ready so that we can start deploying these new technologies on an industrial scale. Science is very clear. If we want to continue to thrive as a society, not only today but also in the future, we have to start to act now, and we have to start to act fast. The European Union has very well understood this message, and they have set very ambitious targets, not only for 2030 but also for 2050. We also see now that other parts of the world are following suit, with more and more countries coming forward and putting forward net zero objectives by 2050 or shortly thereafter. So I think the good news here is really that the world is starting to move in the right direction. If our Flemish industry wants to survive in this climate neutral future, we will have to start moving as well. And more people within the Flemish region and within Flemish industry are also becoming aware of this. The discussion is no longer about if we have to go there. The question that I've noticed in the last few years is more and more about how are we going to get there. Klimact helped answering this question by developing a model that really mapped all the challenges but also the opportunities of the transition. And I think that's very important to stress that there are opportunities to the transition as well. But if we want to reap them, we have to work together. We have to make sure that we all move in the same direction. And we have to think more on the long term rather than the short term. If we do that, and if we make the transition a success, we can ensure that our Flemish industry continues to contribute to our economy, not only in 2050, but also in the decades after that.